First of all, I apologize because it's been a while since I promised to do this English version of my last episode of this video series of traditional archery. In that last episode, in Finnish version, I spoke and showed how to handle the bow. And now I try to explain the same things in English. It's gonna be quite difficult and fun. Try to find words, but well, let's see. Why I want to do is because it is a really important thing. At first, when people start archery, beginners, they probably just are happy when they find the good hold and they find the grip and they hold tight and then they just shoot and feels comfortable. Okay, that's maybe good starting point, of course, yes, but right after we learn how to shoot, the basic techniques are okay, and when we try to find the most accurate way to shoot, then it's definitely time to check out what we do or do not with our bow hand. So it is one of the most important things in archery, how to use your bow hand. And what I'm gonna explain, it is just how I prefer, how I see those things, how I do it myself. There are many ways to think these things, and there are also many other techniques too. So these are not the only one, and I'm not gonna go very deep in those techniques, but I want to show you, and I wish that you start thinking by yourself how you could do certain things perhaps a little better, and maybe you could test also how these things are affecting to the accuracy. So let's start. So how I see it, there are two basic options to choose with. The option one is that we don't want to affect anyways, anyhow, to the bow behavior or to the arrows behavior. So I'm speaking about neutral grip. The other option is that I definitely want to do some techniques so that I could affect to the bow behavior positively, and I could affect to the arrow flight positive way. So these two options we should observe first. So let's start with option one, neutral grip. That means that no matter what kind of grip I have, I just want to hold the bow very gently. I think myself as kind of a bow stand or some kind of robot hand. So I just want to be able to push the bow grip directly to the target. Just push to the target. My fingers are very loose. The only job for my fingers is then to go around the grip so that when I release, the bow doesn't fly off my hand. That's the only power I use with my fingers. Because if we squeeze our fingers at all, or by accidentally, how many archers do without recognizing it, then there are most likely some kind of force in our fingertips or our fists, the squeezing movement that is affecting to the bow somehow, little twist the way or another. And these little twists are affecting, of course, to the arrow and how it behaves at first. If you remember the last episode when I spoke about the tuning the arrow and the archer's paradox, we want to remember that if our arrow is tuned right, the arrow is bending and going around the bow and flying straight because all the things we spoke. That is why we don't want to mess it up or blow it, the whole work we have done to the arrow by making some mistakes here when release by squeezing the fist. So just hold and push to the target and let the bow do its job. If I have this low wrist grip, then I want to make sure that the shape of the grip is laying very steady on my whole palm of my hand, and then I have good power and comfortable way push the bow to the target. If I had a pistol grip, so very shaped grip, then it is the same thing. I just put my fork of my hand very deeply on the deepest spot of the grip, and then feel where is the good spot to hold the wrist steady, and then just push to the target. And never ever squeeze the fingers. Just put them around gently and keep them gently the whole action. The pulling the string, the anchor if you use anchor, and then release, just not squeezing at all. You learn how much you should keep your fingers squeezed or rounded the grip so you don't drop your bow. That is all. Then there's also one option that if you want to use high wrist grip, you have used to shoot with pistol grips, and you perhaps want to shoot also with primitive bows or bows with primitive grips, then one option is to still make a fork with your thumb and first finger, the index finger, and put it to the bow's grip, the deepest spot, even if it is not very deep, so you can find the sweet spot and put the fork of your hand there, and then the middle and the ring finger and the little finger, just put them like they were in the fist. Okay, so the only fingers you put around the grip are your first finger and your thumb, and these are holding it very gently. And then you can use your straight high wrist and shoot same way as you had the very deeply shaped pistol grip. Many experienced archers are using this kind of technique also with the pistol grips. Why they use this? The benefit is that you don't accidentally squeeze your fingers around the bow grip, and then it also helps to keep the bow this straight vertical position. Even your hand is in a 45 degrees angle. Why is this? Because most of people, this 45 degrees angle of the fist is most natural way to put your hand forward. If you think you are picking up something on the table, the drinking glass or whatever, most of us, we like to do it this way and pick the thing up. If there is a cup of coffee, we pick it up this way, not like this. So this is natural way to put your arm forward. So this kind of technique helps you to keep your hand in this angle and still keep your bow in this vertical position. Many archers, especially if they use some kind of sights or sighting systems like cap shooters or string walkers or face walkers, they feel more comfortable to keep the bow this way, especially when they shoot long distances. It's somehow easier to aim and easier to calculate the arc of the arrow if it's this way. Then many archers who shoot instinctive way, they want to keep the bow more like this, and the benefit of this is of course that you can still look the target with your both eyes. The stereo vision is most effective when there are nothing disturbing on the sight, so you can keep it this way. And then of course again, this is the natural angle of the hand, and then the arrow is also under your eye, especially if your dominant eye is the right. When speaking again of right-handed archers, when the dominant eye is right, then it is very easy to keep the arrow under this dominant eye and kind of aim or use your reference vision, or if you use the reference point method, like for example Byron Ferguson is teaching, then this is very good way. And of course I need to tell you that if your arrow is tuned right, then there is no matter at all do you keep your bow in this position or do you hold the bow like this. The arrow itself is flying straight if you are tuning it right and release is good. And of course you learn how to calculate the arc of the bow, but somehow, some reason, it is very common that it is easier to hold the bow this way, especially when shooting long distance and especially if you use some sights. Couple words more about these high and low wrist things. You remember, if you use primitive type of grip and still want to keep your draw length as long as possible, then you probably want to use your high wrists. That is then good option to use this if you don't have the pistol grip. But even this low grip does make my draw length a little bit shorter. I feel much more powerful when I use my low wrist. And I used to tell my students that it is the same way that if you do some dips, or if you want to push some for example wall or something very hard, then we usually feel much more powerful when we put our whole hand to the wall, or if we make dips, then we just hold the dip bar with the whole palm. That's more powerful way compared to the high wrist grip. There are quite few people who are making dips with this way, just using the fork of the hand or pushing something very powerfully and keeping the wrist high. This is the power. But these are just a matter of the taste, and of course the matter how heavy bow you use. I have used to use quite heavy bows. This is now my lightest draw weight, and this is 50 pounds of draw. So somehow I want to keep my low wrist on the handle, so to make it sure that it doesn't slip off, and it's more steady for me. So when to use this neutral grip? Well, that is the basic grip people teach when you go to archery lessons. That's the basic technique when we are speaking of target shooting with sights, or hunting with compound bows, or basic bows and basic techniques. That's the number one. Just hold it gently, okay? But that means also that you only have two choices what comes to release systems. So of course the basic choice is the Mediterranean release. And why in this technique you cannot do any bow techniques? It is because there are no room here, because every archer knows that the string is very easily hitting to the arm, and that is why people use these arm protectors in archery. So there are no room to make any kind of Khatras or twists. That is reason one. And reason two is that you don't need to do it, because if you use finger release and you keep your arrow on the same side as your face is, you don't need to do anything, because if you have tuned your arrow, remember the string goes around these fingertips and turns a little bit left and then forward and escorts the arrow. Same thing if you are thumb shooter or want to use thumb technique, then you don't have to do anything, because if you have correctly tuned your arrow, then again the string goes right side, because it goes around this only finger, the thumb, which is pulling the string. It goes around it and then escorts the arrow at the same side. So there is absolutely no need to do any kind of Khatra or any kind of bow techniques if you don't want to. These are the basic things about option one. If you use Mediterranean release and keep your arrow to the left side and you are right-handed archer, then just use the neutral grip. That's just the only option, what I think. You just keep it low or high depending the grip, or maybe you can try this out to keep your bow in a vertical position and your hand in good angle. That's your choices. Go for it. If you are thumb shooter and you keep your arrow opposite side, then the way you should think is that you don't need to do anything if you don't want to, but then you have also options to do few bow techniques if you want, because you have room to do it. And now we are speaking the option 2. If you want to do something to affect to your bow's working and to your arrow flight, let's say that way that it is the Khatra what I'm talking about. There are many other names for bow techniques depending in which side of world the technique is coming, but in this video I use that name for all my bow techniques, so Khatras. And there are 3 basic type of Khatras what people use, and what I have also used all of them. So the first option is the forward Khatra, meaning that the upper limb of the bow is going forward to the target. Then the second type of Khatra is the side Khatra, and that means that the bow turns torsionally, so that the string turns to the right when speaking of right-handed archers. This is the side Khatra. And then the full Khatra, the side forward Khatra, or forward side Khatra, how you want to name it, that is the combination of those first ones. So the full Khatra is that upper limb goes forward and also the bow turns torsionally this way. So forward Khatra, side Khatra, and full Khatra. What are the differences between these? Basically, at this point I want to tell that many archers who says that they do the Khatra, there are archers who still doesn't want to make any effect to the bow or arrow, or they think that they do the effect to the bow or arrow, but they are not doing it correctly and they just miss it. Those who are knowing what they do and they still do the Khatra without effect to the arrow, then they maybe it is more like follow-through method to the way they want to keep the bow arm steady without dropping it. So maybe at some point this is helping them to make the follow-through. Some just makes it because it looks cool that they do the Khatra, and some they think that they effect to the arrow but they miss it. Now I will explain how you should do it and how I do it so that it really affects to the bow and to the arrow. How it affects is the speed and the arrow flight, how clean the arrow flight is, and it also helps with the archer's paradox. But first things first, the forward Khatra, especially when you use the symmetric pose, then the arrow is a little bit higher than the 0 point of this bow length. Then you see, when we release without doing anything, the string stops here and the arrow starts flying. But when we do this forward Khatra, this movement makes the string go forward and throw the arrow with greater speed. How to do it is that when you shoot, when you pull back, then you should hold very tight grip. So this is absolutely opposite way than the option 1 we just spoke. In this Khatra, you should pull with your little finger and ring finger very strongly in backwards, and then you should push with your fork of the hand forward. So there are two forces affecting to the bow. These fingers are pulling and the fork of the hand is pushing, and that makes of course the bow tilt this way. But you should do it before you release. So right when you start pulling the string back and pushing the bow to the target, you should also squeeze your fingers and push your fork hand, trying to put your bow already in this position before the release is happened. It is same kind of thing that when you are pulling the string and the limb is bending back and storing energy, and when release, the limb releases this energy and throws the arrow. It is the same thing that when you are pulling back, you should try to put your bow in this Khatra position before the release, and then there's some energy storage in your hand, and right when you release, it goes at the same second that the string goes. That is the only way to catch the speed of the bow and the arrow. If you try to first release and then do the Khatra, you are too late. Or if you try to think that you make it at the same time, that you same time do the Khatra and release, that is also when you are going to be too late. That is, there are so many examples, so many videos which are studying this thing, and those who are very skeptical about this Khatra thing in overall, they are telling that you will miss it already, because never ever human body can be as quick as this string. But if you do it before you release, then the effect is a reality, and you can add the arrow speed quite a lot. So the forward Khatra is basically adding the speed to the arrow, nothing more. Then the side Khatra, this, when you should use it? Well, that is when you use finger release, but you are still keeping your arrow on the right side of the bow. So people who are using Slavic release or Persian release, as I do, so this, then because of this wrong type of release, the string goes left but the arrow is right, and that makes the arrow flight bad. even if I try to tune my arrows. At least the tuning of the arrow is really hard to find some perfect flight if I just hold my neutral grip and use this Persian Slavic release. No. But if I do this side Khatra, that corrects this mistake of this finger release. So when the string goes left, but if I do my side Khatra, then it is going still perfectly straight. And this is what I have been studied a lot and made a lot of these high-speed videos. I can put one link in description field, so you can find for example one video where I used my basic arrow and basic bow with the Khatra and without the Khatra. You see the effect. So I am doing this side Khatra because I use this finger release and keep my arrow on right side to correct this wrong type of release, to make my arrow flight straight. And then if I want to make both, so I want to add some speed and correct the arrow flight, then I want to use my full Khatra. One more thing about the side Khatra, it also helps with the paradox. So if you have difficulties to find the good arrow flight and you don't want to buy new arrows or cut anymore, you have quite good set of arrows, even you are thumb shooter, you can try to do a little bit side Khatra. That will help it a lot. In theory, you could use unbending arrows, so like steel arrows which don't bend at all. So you could still make the arrow flight perfect if you use your side Khatra correct way. Interesting, isn't it? So how to do the side Khatra? I want that my bow is turning this way after release. So this movement has to be done before the release if I want to making some effect. Some people think that we turn the bow off from the arrow's path. I don't think it that way. I want to think that my bow is still, but I turn my string to the right to compensate this string movement because of my fingers. So how I see it, I don't move my bow, I just make this twist movement. And it has to be done again before the release is happened. So how I do it, I extend my arm and put my hand in good natural position, like picking up something, as I spoke you. Then I bring my bow to the hand and put the bow in this Khatra position. And when I have this window here enough done, then I squeeze my fingers and take this kind of grip. So you could think like the bow, it's a little bit sideways in my hand already without twisting the wrist. No, this is wrong. Just keep the fist straight and put the bow in this side position. Then you just squeeze your fingers and hold really tight. And when you knock the arrow and start pulling the string back, you just push the bow to the target and want to find follow through position before the release is gone. And that is how the Khatra happens fast enough for the arrow. If I try to release and then some kind of do this kind of twist, I'm way too late. The arrow is gone when my reflexes are doing this. So again, before the release, the same time when I pull back my arrow, I start to pushing and finding this end position, this window here. So this thumb here, I try to push it through the bullseye, and when I release, the side Khatra happens naturally. And then the full Khatra, same thing again. I want to do these both. So while I'm starting to pulling back, I start to push my upper limb to the target and also make this torsional twist happen. So I try to imagine that before my release happens, my bow is already in this full position. That is how I storage this energy in my whole arm, and the whole thing happens. And when we speak about the grip, this all happens combined what I just spoke. So for this side motion, I put the bow a little bit sideways, and for this forward motion, I squeeze a lot with my ring finger and index finger, and I push my thumb. Actually, I spoke that when I make my forward Khatra, I push with the fork of the hand, and now when I'm using the full Khatra, I push with my thumb. I try to push my thumb to the target. That's when the side motion comes, and same time I squeeze and pull with my little finger and ring finger a little bit sideways, and when this all happens, the bow goes to the full Khatra. Master Mihai Cosme once taught that one way to imagine how the full Khatra should be done is this water glass or wine glass method. So you could think that you could hold some sort of expensive drink, and you could say cheers to the target and then give the drink to the target. This is the same motion. First, when you say cheers, that's the knocking, cheers, and when you start pulling back, you just give the drink to the target. That's the one funny way to think it, the motion. At the end, I want to speak a couple things more and kind of warn you. The fact is that the more you make some kind of Khatra movements, no matter what kind of Khatra you do, the more risks you have that you are affecting to the accuracy negatively. In other words, if we look for those Olympic recurve archers which are shooting extreme accurately, they really don't do anything with the bow hand. Or if you go to the field competitions or to the hunting competitions, and look how those champions are shooting. They really they do nothing with the bow hand, because the fact is that if we let the bow do its job, and if we use proper technique and use our good arrow tuning, that combination is the most accurate way to shoot one single arrow. Because the more you do these Khatras, the more mistakes you can do, which are affecting negatively to the accuracy. If you use this Slavic release and do the good Khatra, and if you are able to make the arrow flight perfectly straight, that doesn't mean that you hit the target. That is what you need to remember. So I am speaking about my own experiences. I have been shooting in past in longbow classes, in hunting competitions and field competitions, and done some trick shots and accurate shots with longbows. I know that if I do anything, any little squeezing here, it affects negatively to the accuracy. But then I need to tune my arrows, and also I have plenty of time to shoot that one single arrow. But now, as I'm nowadays a horseback archer, and I want to shoot as fast those arrows as possible, that is why I've chosen this Slavic method. For me, that is the fastest way to shoot. And because I use this fast shooting method, I use this finger release, I have to do some sort of Khatra to make my arrow fly straight. I have trained the full Khatra, I have trained the side Khatra, and I have trained the forward Khatra, those all things. And now at this day I have walked through the whole circle and tested and tested and tested, and now I'm only in side Khatra. I try to do minimal Khatra so that my follow through is good, and I don't do any extra mistakes, so I also try to hit the target. But I need to do a little bit Khatra so that my arrow flies straight to the target. So I need to do some compromises. If I were only a hunter or only a target shooter, I would choose the option 1, so absolutely neutral grip. But now, because of this Slavic release for the speed, I have this little kind of bad string movement because of this method. That is why I need to do a little bit Khatra to make the arrow fly better. But I try to do just the side Khatra, not full Khatras, not extra Khatras, so that my arrows would be on the spot in a target. So I hope this video puts some thoughts in your mind and helps you maybe figure out what would be a good way to use your bow hand and your bow grip. If you are not a horseback archer, or if you don't want to shoot as fast as possible, so you have time to put your new arrow on the string and then time to shoot one single arrow, maybe it is good then to use the neutral grip and choose between the Mediterranean release or thumb release. That's enough, and that will be the most accurate way. But if you want to shoot as fast as possible, you need to shoot on horseback and control the arrow against the wind and all this movement, then you probably want to use some horseback archery methods. For example, this Slavic release, or if you use thumb release, then maybe you want still to add some speed. The arrow speed is important to us horseback archers, because when we shoot, for example, side shots, and the horse is galloping very fast, then the faster the arrow flight is, it is easier to hit to the target, because you don't need to correct the movement. It's kind of moving targets, you know. And the faster the arrow is, the more you can aim to the center of the target. So you need to know what you are doing, and you need to know your goals, what you want to do, and then choose correct techniques for your goals. That's my message. And as I told you, I spoke only the Khatra. There are many names of these bow techniques. There are still many ways to do the Khatras too. For example, Mihai Cosme does it a little bit different way. He is teaching it a little bit different way and seeing it differently, more like a punch. That's, of course, that's one way to do, but still common thing is that you need to do the Khatra before you release the string. If you are not doing it, you think it two separate things, that the release and then Khatra, or you try to think it that is the same time motion, you're gonna be late. That's my promise. So you can film yourself, put some videos on, and test it out how this works. I hope this helps you to become better in archery. Thanks for watching. I hope I didn't mess up my words too badly and my message was somehow clear. Next time, probably sooner than now, maybe I will talk more my release, and that is the whole another story. If you have not subscribed my channel, please hit the button and subscribe, and also keep some thumbs up if you liked, and of course put them down if you didn't like it. This is how I think, and this is what I do when I do archery, and I hope this helps you just a little bit, at least understand what is Khatra and when to use it and when not to use. And if you don't use the Khatra, then it helps you to make sure that you focus on those loose fingers. Don't squeeze. See you next time. Bye.